What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV, back here for another episode of the Tottenham Update, and a few things to update you on today. And we're going to start off with Sergio Reguilón. Obviously, he's one of the guys that were left at home from the training camp in South Korea, and it looks as though we are trying to find him a new club. And one of those clubs that are looking at him are Barcelona, as Ferran Martinez says that Reguilón is among the alternative options at Barcelona if they can't get Marcos Alonso through the door. He was offered to the club on loan. As of now, Barcelona prioritizes Marcos Alonso. And to be honest, I consider this a bit of a non-story because Marcos Alonso seems like it's probably an easier deal to do, or an easy deal to do.
You'd have to think Alonso would be cheaper, wouldn't you? Chelsea also, obviously we don't want Reguilon, so we know that they know he's up for sale. But also Alonso, I think he's probably looking to get with Chilwell coming back from injury. They're probably happy to see him go as well. You'd think that with Reguilon being a bit younger, he would probably command a bigger fee. So it's a bit of an interesting one. Unless Spurs are prepared to do a loan with an obligation or option to buy or something like that, then that's something we could that Spurs can look at. But it'll be an interesting one. I think, yeah, obviously it looks like Madrid, they're definitely not opting with their buyback clause. So there's no worry about that for Barcelona. But I don't know. Something tells me it doesn't seem right that he's going to go to Barca for some reason. It doesn't fit.
Yeah, I mean, the Sevilla links just fit like a glove, don't they?
Yeah.
He's been there. He had a really good time there. They seem interested. And I do suspect like that one probably holds more weight.
Although Barca, they just got money from nowhere, don't they? As Nagelsmann said, they're the only broke club who can afford all these players. So who knows what they've got up their sleeve?
Yeah, it's true. It's true. I mean, it's crazy how much they're spending at the moment. Seeing as a club that could hardly even register players a few months ago.
They're like the highest spenders in Europe. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's mad. Let's move on. Let's talk about James Maddison now, which is an interesting one from John Percy of The Telegraph. And he says, Leicester are in a position now where they need to sell to buy, which means they have to consider offers for players they would ordinarily want to keep, such as James Maddison. How true do you think this is? Because I wasn't under the impression that Leicester are under any financial constraints at the moment.
Well, they're out of Europe, aren't they? And their first time out of Europe probably in a few years. So maybe that's caused issues with their budget. I don't know about their financials. I always thought they were in a fairly strong financial position because of the fact that they won the league and they've been in Europe. So I wouldn't have thought that they would be in a position to have to sell to buy, but I don't know what their budget is. Maybe they've been...
They don't spend that much either.
Yeah, I don't know. I know Samare, they spent decent money on him. They had looking to get rid of him already. Obviously, they spent decent money on Patson Daka last season. Ali Gold did an update on his YouTube, apparently saying that Spurs played it down, the James Maddison links. But he said if it is one that looks like a deal could be done, they will definitely go in for him. So maybe there is potential in this deal. It depends. Look, they say they have to listen to offers. Doesn't mean the offer has to be a cheap one. Still has to probably will be expensive. But it's very interesting. The fact that they have to sell to buy definitely adds more fuel to the fire of the fact that he could be moved to Tottenham. 100%. That adds to it.
The thing is though, like if you're Leicester and you need to sell before you buy, like if you sell James Maddison, it just makes your work so much more harder because he's their best player, right? Their up-and-coming player, 25 years of age, probably their most creative player as well. Last season, he had a stormer of a season in terms of numbers with and considering how poor Leicester actually were last season. You would think that if Maddison was to leave Leicester, it will leave them in even more of a difficult spot, even if they did have 60, 70 million to play with.
Yeah. You probably think that, but maybe they see him as a player that they could replace. I don't know. But maybe they think they could replace him with a cheaper option and improve other areas of the squad. And also, it could mean maybe Tielemans gets a new contract and he stays and something like that. I don't know. I don't know what they're thinking. But if they need the money, Spurs should definitely press that button, I think, and try and see what they can do because he would be perfect for us in terms of what we're missing. But for sure. it doesn't really make too much sense, because you would think they would sell other players first before Maddison, because Maddison is like, yeah, he's their talisman right now. Vardy's aging. Obviously they got rid of Mahrez. Tielemans is on his last year of his contract. Wilfred Indeed's obviously still class, but they need that player who stands out for them, and he's the one at the moment. So if they got rid of him, they would have to have one hell of an end to the window to replace him.
Yeah, I got a feeling like for Leicester, if they do sell Maddison and Tielemans in this transfer window, you're probably looking at like the beginning of the end of this Leicester side, and I think it could all kind of fall apart. And I don't know who they can sign to like replace these kind of players that will actually move to a Leicester that aren't in Europe anymore, dropping down the table. It's going to be difficult for them.
Although there were rumours, weren't there, last year that they were open to selling to Arsenal, but Arsenal never stumped up the cash. That was a year ago. So maybe, I don't know, maybe they're just interested in, and they would listen to offers for him. Maybe they just don't think he's that irreplaceable. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, at least last year they're in Europe, so they had a bit more of a pull. They actually, now thinking about it, they actually did significantly spend last season, and for them in that season of spending to not get European football, that's probably what's done it for them.
Yeah, it's a bit like when I remember Arsenal when they went through a period where they started Ozil and Sanchez, they were getting like Europa League football. They weren't getting Champions League, and the chairman said they've got Europa League money on a Champions League, Champions League wages on Europa League budget, and that might be something that Leicester are going through right now.
Yeah, could be. But look, as I would like James Maddison through the door, is a deal that makes sense to me. But if you would ask me, do I want to stump up, if I can only spend like 60, 70 million on one player, would it be Maddison? Probably not. I'd likely look for a centre back in that for that money.
Yeah, that's probably the position we need most. But Maddison wouldn't say no.
Yeah. Let's move on. Let's talk about Nicolo Zaniolo now of Roma. Calcio Mercato saying that Antonio Conte likes Zaniolo very much. Spurs hold an interest in the Roma attacker, but Spurs must sell players first, not due to financial constraints, but due to just the numbers of players we have on the books at the moment. Roma have just signed Paulo Dybala, so that could open the door for Zaniolo to leave as well. But I have read articles in the last month or so that says that Zaniolo would prefer a move to stay in Italy. And as Dybala has left Juventus, that kind of makes the deal make sense. Juventus go for Zaniolo, and obviously Dybala goes to Roma.
Yeah, could easily. But, Perišić can be very convincing. So you never know. I wouldn't completely rule it out. And I think he's a top quality player. He can play off the left. He can play down the centre. I think he's recovered from his ACL injuries really impressively and admirably, to be fair to him. He's come back. Imagine having 2 ACL injuries at that young age. That could really ruin a player's career. And he's come back and he's been brilliant for Roma last season. And he was a big reason why they won the Conference League. He was fantastic under Jose Mourinho.
Well, he scored the win in the final, didn't he?
Yeah, and exactly. So I think he's definitely a player who had some setbacks, but has all the quality in the world. But is he going to be worth the money? That would be, the money that he would command compared to the risk he has due to his injuries. It would have to go down to the medical and see what the issue is there. But he would be, again, a fantastic player for Spurs. I think for sure would be a massive asset because he's quite versatile as well, so he can play a number of different positions. So for me, he would be a fantastic signing, but he's kind of, because I think he came through Roma and he's very much like a Roma boy, like he's been there a long time. So I don't think they're gonna let him go easily. So I don't know if he's going to be, unless it's a decent deal like 30 million. I don't know if it's worth the risk. Yeah. It might be though.
I think if you're taking him on face value, just on his footballing ability alone, I think it would be a superb signing. But he does come with a bit of that baggage where he has had a few attitude issues in the past. I think he fell out with Mourinho at one stage last season, but I think many players do that. And also the injuries that you're talking about with 2 ACLs in the last 3 or 4 years. So It's an interesting one, but I think the club obviously need to do their due diligence and see if it's one that they want to pursue. But I think it is known that Conte and Paratici both see him as a very, very good player. So I have to see what happens on that one. Next up, I've got a couple of quotes to talk about. First one, we're going to talk about the quotes from Antonio Conte on Jed Spence yesterday. And this has been doing a lot of people's head in around Twitter and social media, and people love to make these assumptions of what he's saying, and they love to make a lot out of nothing, which I think this is anyway. And I'll read you the quotes and you guys to make out of what you think he's saying here. But he says that Spence is an investment of the club. The club wanted to do it. I said, okay, this player is young, but he showed he can become a good, important player for us. The club decided to buy him. We have only one target, to go together in the same direction. I think we are doing well with Daniel and Fabio. We want to continue to grow with ambition. I mean, people are making a lot out of this just because he says Spence is an investment of the club and the club wanted to do it. But no one is taking into account what he says after that, where he says, I said, okay, the player is young, but he showed he can be a good, important player for us. So I don't understand why people are putting one-on-one together and making out saying that Conte didn't want Spence, because he clearly says here that he can be an important player for us.
Yeah, 100%. I think people are just have PTSD about the club making any signings off their own back at this point because of how because they've seen all the implications. Previous managers haven't had full control over transfers. The club have signed them, and so any player the club signed is automatically going to be a failure. And if Levy is involved in it at all, then that means it's going to be terrible. But for me, I think Conte has pretty much got his way in every signing so far this window, and that's five before that. I think all of them in my bet, especially Perišić. Like, no way Levy signs off on that if it wasn't a massively pushed by Conte. I think Richarlison was probably one where everyone was on the same page. Young player, Brazilian, and probably worth the money. Basuma, I can definitely see Conte pointing him out. And Longley, for sure. Conte had something to do with that as well. So Conte has had his way, or literally had the pick of the players before that. So, all right, he has to put up, look, with the fact of the matter is we're probably losing Tanganga. So we need to bring in a homegrown player. And it makes sense. Spence plays right wing back. He's young. He's shown potential. So I think Conte, I think it is probably maybe a bit of a compromise, but I don't think he would have greenlit the deal if he didn't think it could work. That's for sure. So I don't know why people would be upset or by what he said, and he as if he's calling out the club or something. I think the club have been brilliant this window with him, and I think he's super happy with how the window's gone, and I think he's happy with Spence. He's probably got another right wing back to play with now and to mould. I think people are taking the club signed him signed him way too reading way too much into that. I think he's happy with it. And look, the fact of the matter is he was asked the question. I don't know exactly the question was asked, but I think he's just being honest. This signing was brought to him by the club, and he greenlit it. And that's the reality. People are I see people saying, "Well, how would Spence feel if he saw this?" And all this. I was like, why would Spence be upset with this? I don't understand.
Spence would love those quotes, in my opinion. Yeah. Spence would love those quotes saying that he's a young player and he showed he can become a good, important player for us. I mean, what more proof do you need?
And he said the club is an investment from the club. The club are investing in him. Well, why would he be like, oh, they don't want me? No, they're investing in you, mate. That's what it's saying. What? You have to be an idiot to read that the wrong way, honestly. So I don't know why anyone. I don't know. I don't get the controversy around these quotes or anything. Obviously, it makes sensationalist headlines from the Sun, and Conte doesn't want Spence, and Spence is going to be fourth choice. All this kind of bollocks. That's all that is. It's just noise. So I'm sure Spence sees in those quotes the positives, and we all know inside the dressing room it's going to be a different story to what the noise is outside the club. So I don't see why this has been taken negatively by the Spurs fans. It's just people trying to get upset about something, in my opinion. There's nothing to be upset about here.
You know what though, leading up to this transfer, I kind of felt like this was the case where Spence was a club signing and maybe Antonio Conte didn't want him. And I was feeling a bit uneasy that the club will go in for Spence, a player that Conte didn't want. But actually, after seeing these quotes, it's made me happier about the signing because it tells me that Conte rates him. And that's exactly what we want. And if the club and Conte can work together and bring in players that suits both of them, then happy days.
But I think it's also a mix and match. You can't just have constantly every player that you sign be ready-made and be like perfect. Like, I think that you need some youth, you need some up-and-coming talent as well. I think every team has that. You can't just everything can't be like you sign every player for 50 million and they're ready to go straight away. I think you have to also be thinking of the future as well as in the now. And I think we're doing both. So I don't see a problem with it. If we were just doing one or the like last season, we were just signing young players. I was like, okay, I don't know about this approach. And then previously, under Mourinho, we were just signing players for the here and now. Maybe we weren't looking for the future. And that was also a problem. But I see a balance now. So I don't see the issue in having a balanced approach. I think that's perfect. You've got young players coming through and you've got ready-made players as well there. So for me, I think I'm excited about the deal, and I think I don't see a problem with what Conte's saying. And I like him being honest. I want more honesty. I'm sick and tired of these non-answers and we don't know what's going on. Let's have some truth. People say it could make for bad PR. Honestly, I'd rather the truth than anything else.
I completely agree. And I mean, like, people just like to make a lot out of nothing. And Conte, when he comes out and says crazy stuff like after that Burnley game and stuff like that, people think like he's an absolute nutcase with the stuff he comes out. But actually, everything he says is meticulously planned. And after that Burnley game, he said all that stuff to get a reaction out of the players, and that's exactly what he got. And how many people dug into Antonio Conte for those comments?
Exactly. And how's it going to help the dressing room? How's it going to? And then what happened? We're on a great run. We made top 4 because I don't know if it was down to those comments, but definitely how he dealt with that defeat. He got a reaction out of them, and he's always been very good at doing that, Antonio Conte. So people always reading every little thing he says and complaining, oh, he's terrible with the media. He doesn't know how to handle the media. I think he handles the media very well, for me personally, and I enjoy listening to him.
Yeah, I completely agree. Last but not least, we've got some quotes from Ryan Sessègnon, and obviously Sessègnon has had his issues since being at Tottenham, injury issues, potentially confidence issues as well. And finally, he's got a guy that's come in Ivan Perišić, who he can learn a lot of. And I was on David Harris's show last night, and I was saying for Sessègnon now, this is his time because he's got Antonio Conte in, one of the best coaches in the world, especially for wing backs. And he's also got Ivan Perišić on to learn from as well. So it's literally what more could Ryan Sessègnon ask for right now than being at Tottenham Hotspur, learning off Perišić, being coached by Conte. And these are the quotes that he says. He says, my aim this season is to score more goals and more assists. I scored a lot of goals at Fulham, and I just want to get back to that this season. And then he was speaking on Perišić as well. And he says, I can learn a lot from him technically, mentally, and physically. He's already helped me with the little pointers, tips about the way to affect games more in an attacking sense and to score more goals. So this is exactly music to our ears, because if Ryan Sessègnon can learn just half of what Ivan Perišić knows about being a wing back, I mean, we're going to have a real player on our hands.
Yeah, and he's the perfect player to learn off, not just his quality, but his mentality. The guy is 33 years of age and is the top of his game. And imagine doing that at wing back as well. That's like the hardest position to be for longevity. So Sessègnon has to take everything he can from this guy and learn how to be the best, most effective player in that position you can be. And Perišić over the last couple of years has definitely been that most effective wing back. And it's not also not just about technical ability, which I'm sure maybe Perišić can teach him a few things like when to cross the ball and stuff like that. But it's also arriving in the box, things like what he was doing at Fulham really well, but he's kind of taken out of his game recently. The ability to be at the back post, knowing when to make that run into the box, being another option there. Also, maybe being very good in the air. Perišić is a brilliant player in the air as well. He can maybe help Sessègnon with that as well. So I think it's invaluable time for Sessègnon, and it's maybe a part of the reason we chose him over Reguilon, because he's just more suited to that role. And we believe that in the long term, if he can learn under Perišić, he could be he can be a very good player for us in the future. And Sessègnon always said his best role, he believes, is wing back. And now he's the perfect opportunity to grow as much as he can as a player. And I really believe that he's still young, 22 years of age. I think we showed a lot at the end of last season about what he can do in that role in very big games. So I really believe maybe this is his season now. This is time to really break out. He had a very good season last season when he did play. Unfortunately, injuries still hampered him a bit. But maybe this is his season now to really break out as that left wing back that we all hoped he would become.
Yeah, completely agree. This is your time now, Sess. But that is your Tottenham update for today. Let me know in the comment section below if you have any thoughts regarding any of the news stories we brought to you today. We'll be back in the studio tomorrow, so looking forward to that one. Like, subscribe, and comment. And as always, come on,
you Spurs.